Hey everyone, I'm Selena Hill, Deputy Digital Editor at Black Enterprise, and this is the new norm. Today, I'm speaking to the brains and the host behind the widely popular business and finance podcast, Earn Your Leisure, featuring Rashad, Bilal, and Troy Millings. Now, Earn Your Leisure gives listeners a breakdown of business models and trends in finance from the perspective of renowned entrepreneurs and finance leaders that range from John Henry to Mark Cuban to Master P. Shaquille O'Neal and Dwayne Wade have also been on the show. So I am super, super excited to have them here with us today. What's going on, Rashad and Troy?
Thank you. Thank you for having us. It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure and an honor, first and foremost. So thank you.
This is our made it moment. Thank you, Selena.
Now you guys have made it. They told me offline that Black Enterprise was one of the first publications to feature them. We've been following and covering you guys since 2019. And I know that you launched Earn Your Leisure, I believe, January 2019. And within months, you guys had more than 6,500 subscribers and an average of 20,000 plays per episode. That was back then. It's more than 2 years later now. What are you guys, what are your numbers looking like now? What are the plays? What are the hits?
I don't even want to say one of you. Your Black Enterprise was the first, and for a while the only that was covering us, and that was a huge moment to see a publication that we had read growing up to highlight us, and so thank you for that. A lot has changed.
We went from 6,000 YouTube subscribers at that time to 400,000 now, and I believe I don't know where we was at, but we're the number one. Well, we fluctuate, but we hit number one as the number one business podcast in the world a couple of weeks ago. That was a monumental moment for us. We dethroned Dave Ramsey. I think that's like the first time in history that a Black owned podcast was number one.
Independent too.
It's been crazy. It's been crazy, but it's been a blessing.
It has definitely been a blessing. We need to know the secret to your success, because I believe back in 2019, it was reported that you guys did not put money in for marketing and it was very organic, your growth. So what was the secret?
Yeah, the secret was good content, word of mouth. And, we went right when everybody else was going left. So, we created our own niche as far as in the financial literacy space. We took a different approach to it. We didn't, for years, if you had to, wear a suit and tie in order to really be taken seriously and speaking about business, and, you had to shave your face, and we come in with, beards and
hoodies
and, just sneakers and, hip hop lyrics and things of that nature. But we talk serious about business and investing, and it was a refreshing approach for people, I think. So really, the best marketing tool was us just being ourselves, and then of course social media. We hammered social media, Instagram specifically, every single day, multiple posts every single day for years, still to this day, and that just created a community online. Instagram, I think we have over like 600 something thousand people on Instagram now, and that's really just championed us, and just people just sharing the information with their friends, putting it in their stories, reposting us, and that was the marketing plan.
Yeah. The marketing plan is just add value, right? Like we added value to a community that needed it, right? We were authentically ourselves, and we figured like being ourselves would be the key, and more people resonated with the way we talked and the things we were talking about, and they told a friend to tell a friend. Like we mixed our barbershop conversations with Wall Street. And it just took off, and it was refreshing to our community, and it just spread like wildfire. And every day, like you said, that just pounding Instagram, the consistency and value, those are the two ingredients that propelled us to success.
Yeah. And, podcasting has become a $1 billion industry within the last decade. It seems like almost overnight. There's so many podcasts, there's so many content creators. What is it that has made Earn Your Leisure a standout in this very oversaturated market?
I think that we're different as far as our demographic of people, which we cater to everybody, but specifically people from our culture. There's a lot of podcasts out there, but not a lot of podcasts like Earn Your Leisure. Now there is, but at the time there wasn't. So, you have a lot of podcasts that focus on music, that focus on sports, that focus on pop culture, that focus just on gossip, that focus on people's opinions. And those are all great. But for us, we did something that there was really no other body doing on a large scale. But we focused on business, and we didn't stray away from that message. We doubled down on our message of business, investing, finance. That's something that, we have the whole playing field to ourselves, because at that time specifically, nobody was doing it. So I think that that's really what separates us from the pack, is that we were different. We dared to be different. And with that, we didn't really have too much competition.
Yeah, we kind of we used to say this early. We would put the medicine inside the candy, and so these complex topics and these complex words that people hear when they think business, we kind of broke it down into a language that was digestible for the listener. And once people felt comfortable with the terminology, and they were like, "Oh, that's what it means," right? And when you start understanding it at a different level, and that you can apply it into your everyday life, people just kept coming back, because it was like, oh, there's a new topic every day. It was every week, it was a new thing. And so our big thing is like, we can be anything that we want in the world. We just have to see somebody doing it. And so we made it very intentional point to find people in different avenues of business, and that was successful in it, to share with the world. And once they did that, it became like the gumbo soup for entrepreneurs. Like, I could do that, I could do this, I could do mobile homes, and people knew that they can count on us for that. And so like that helped us as well.
Yeah, but you guys haven't been getting just anybody. Not only do you get experts and thought leaders in this space, you're getting A-listers, as I named at the top of the segment. How are you able to, to get a Shaquille O'Neal, to get a Master P, a Killer Mike? How are you guys? I mean, I know that you guys have a lot of clout now and a lot of leverage, but in the beginning, when you were just coming up, how were you able to secure these names?
Relationships, all everybody that you named, like the Killer Mike situation, he was actually just aware of us on social media. And then a friend of ours on social media, aka Conundrum, shout out to her. She I put a post up like, we want to get Killer Mike, and she actually was friends with him and connected it. Master P, shout out to Denise the broker, somebody that we connected with in Atlanta. She connected the dots for that. That's pretty much been the story. Mark Cuban, shout out to Al Harrington. He connected the dots for that. So it's really been a game of just, networking and establishing strong relationships with people. And that has been like 90% of the guests that we have gotten has come by way of that. And then, of course, as the platform grows, it becomes easier to get guests as well. And now we have a relationship with, shout out to Charlemagne and the good folks at Black Effect Podcast Network. So that helps out as well. They do a great job of trying to get people for us. But yeah, the majority of the stuff is just organic. And I wish it was something like, a lot of times people hear like, all right, this is like, if I just do this, I can get this. But really, that's not our story. Our story is really just really organic and really real relationships.
Yeah.
And one thing led to the next, and we couldn't plan. Like, we got Dame Dash by way of Kenny Burns. We got Kenny Burns by way of our guy Dave from United Masters. And this is somebody that, Troy just met randomly at a party. So it's like everybody's 3 degrees of separation. So I feel like at this point, there's nobody that we can't get on the show. I feel like we can at least attempt to get anybody, because at least somebody that we knows somebody that we possibly want. So that's the most important thing in any business, but especially in our business, in the media business, is relationships.
Yeah. And somebody told us this early on. You can have your list of people that you want, right? You may get your top 10 list, and we did that. But people like, look, you don't shoot at for number 10. Get like a level 4 or 5 and just keep building and keep grinding, right? So the people that we had on early, people probably weren't familiar with them, but the value that they were adding, they could relate to, right? So whether it was the restaurant business with our brother Derek Falcon, or the mortgage game with our brother MG, people, these things are going to happen in your life, right? Like, you have to live somewhere. You're probably going to go to a restaurant at some point, right? You need to know some of these things that they're talking about. And so we just kept building from the 4s and the 5s and the 6s. And then it was like, okay, well, let's shoot for a 10 now. And so we knocked down a 10. And now it became a place where it's like, where else are these people going to speak about business, right? Especially in our community, it was like, if you wanted to, rappers and athletes, if they had a business endeavor, it'd be tough. for them to get on a platform and speak about it. They just didn't even feel comfortable. And so we knew very quickly, like if we provided a platform, they would come. And so like that's what we're watching play out right now.
Yeah, but when they come to your platform, there's definitely something different about the Earn Your Leisure interviews. What I particularly love is, number one, you guys speak for the culture, right? I don't know how intentional that is, but you guys are definitely yourselves. And I feel like, the culture relates to that. That's number one. And number two, how in depth you guys go, like the amount of research and prep that goes into the interviews, very, very impressive. So I wanted to just talk about like the style of interviews. Are you guys just like letting it flow and figuring it out? Or are you guys like planning and putting in a lot of time and research?
Both. And so we started Earn Your Leisure, a lot of business podcasts or business platforms, period. It's a lot of fluff, a lot of motivational stuff. Like you bring people on and, they go through their backstories and they give some motivational quotes and they talk about their career and what they have done, which is great. But I don't really want to hear all that. Like I want to know exactly what's going on. Like, how did you do it? That's for me personally. So when we started Earn Your Leisure, the first couple episodes, it was like deep dives into like case studies. That was the original premise of Earn Your Leisure. It was like pop culture mixed with Harvard Business School and like interesting case studies. Because that's like what they do in Ivy League school. They give you like case studies. So we was taking case studies of like Airbnb and like breaking them down. Like, how did Airbnb get started? And all of these companies have like really cool backstories that really nobody knew. That was like the original premise. And then we had an episode 11, shout out to Derek Falcon. He was a restaurant owner from Baltimore. And he came on and he was the first one that actually like broke down his business model from like A to Z, every single thing. He was 100% transparent on how much money he was bringing in. And I had never heard anybody speak that. I never heard anybody speak like that before. He set the template going forward, and that really changed the trajectory of our interviews. So now they became more of a deep dive into your industry. So it's like if we interview a MG the mortgage guy, we have to know the ins and outs of how to get a home and all of that. When we interview Wall Street Trapper, we have to know the ins and outs about stock market. Teach us, like, don't just come and just, so from there, we just realized like we had something, because nobody, I don't know what, but they was nobody was providing that level of detailed information. And then it became kind of like a template where now people, they as they got more familiar with Earn Your Leisure, when they came on the show, like each person was trying to outdo the next person. So it was like, all right, I'm gonna give even more information than the next person gave. So that just led us down a rabbit hole of just, very detailed. Our audience, our information is extremely detailed, like a step-by-step walkthrough of the process.
Yeah, and as far as the research goes, he's 1000%. We have 25 over almost 30 years of research because we talk every day, and so like I know what he's going to ask. So the preparation really goes like, all right, where you want to go with this? Where you want to go? And from that's all we need to hear is where you want to go, and then we'll take it from there. And so every week, the reason it comes across so genuine is because we're actually trying to learn. Like we've studied the person for the week before we do the interview, or sometimes we'll do 3. We'll study the people, and now we've got an in-depth vision of what the career is, what things that we should expect from being in the career, and now we just want to confirm it with the person who's the expert. And once they start going, now we got to dive deeper, because then more questions come up, right? So like when you do the research, it's like, all right, well, I know the person before they got here. Now I just want to confirm everything that you're saying and add some more. And like you said, once we started doing that, people wanted to add more value, and it became a competition. But that only helps the listener, right? Because now you're getting more every time, because the person is challenging themselves to dig deeper and add more value. Just give the value away, and the rest is history.
Troy, about how long does that research process take? Is it a matter of days? Is it a matter of hours?
It depends on the person. Some people have a lot of information that you can find, and so it could take like an hour. And then I remember there are some guests who have nothing. Like you have to study their industry more than you have to study them. I remember when we did the interview with Ian Dunlap, our brother who we have a show with on Market Mondays on YouTube. He had 2 articles written on him, and I was like,
I think we were one of them too. Shout out to Ian.
Right, and I was like, what are we gonna get on this guy? And so I knew that he traded in the futures market. And so that became my research. Let me study the futures market, because I'm going to have 1,000 questions for him about that. And I'm going to learn, but the audience is going to learn as well. And so that took a little bit longer. But most of the times people have some things written about them. And if not, then I'll study the industry. And that becomes my where I do the research at.
Absolutely. So thank you just so much for the breakdown of that and the progress that you guys have been making. So, speaking of progress, you guys signed a partnership with Charlemagne Tha God and iHeartMedia's The Black Effect Podcast Network earlier this year. Tell us about this partnership and how it came about.
Yeah, for sure. Well, it came about. Shout out to Chad. He's the brains behind the 85 South show. And shout out to Mandy from Horrible Decisions. Both of our friends, and they was telling Charlemagne about us because I guess when he was trying to, at the beginning stages before they even had it up and running, he was, recruiting talent, and they were saying like, you should look at Earn Your Leisure, you should tap in with these guys. So Chad was the one that actually connected us in a group chat, and Charlemagne called me. I think it was in the summertime.
Yeah.
We had a good conversation. He was very, very cool person, just down to earth, and his reputation really precedes himself. Everybody that we spoke to, and a variety of different people, they always had good things to say about Charlemagne. So that was the beginning of that relationship, and then I kind of just going back and forth for a couple of months, and we partnered up at the beginning of this year, and it's been a good relationship. Shout out to Dolly, shout out to everybody over there, the whole team. And I kind of look at it like, it's ironic that we have Nipsey Hussle in the back for our album covers, rest in peace. But when his whole thing was independence and all of that. But the Victory Lap album, when he really became a household name, I think he was on Atlantic Records.
Yep.
So he maintained his masters, maintained ownership and all of that. But sometimes you need to push from an establishment, and it made sense. If we're gonna work with anybody, we definitely want to work with people that look like us. So being that Charlemagne was the captain of the ship, and just having a bunch of conversations with him and the whole team over there, we're like, this makes complete sense, to have something, like I said, where we retain ownership, we retain creative control, but we can work together. And I think that's the most important thing. It's like a lot of times we look at it like we have too much pride to work together, but we don't have enough pride to work together with anybody. Our whole thing is collaboration over competition. And it's been a great relationship so far. Looking forward to doing more things in the future. But that's pretty much the
Can you guys
how we came together.
Can you guys expand a little bit more about the partnership, like the difference between being signed to a podcast network in like how that differentiates between partnering with a major podcast network? I know you just said you have ownership rights and you maintain your IP. Is that pretty much the difference?
Yeah, well, everybody's situation is different, but like one situation that made news was the Call Me Daddy Girls. I believe that's the name of the show, and they're on Barstool.
Yep.
So it came out that they didn't own their show, so it was going back and forth, and they got legal. They got into a legal fight, but Barstool retained the show. I think one of the hosts actually came back to the show, but long story short, they don't own the name Call Me Daddy. They didn't own the merch. They didn't own a lot of different things. So us, we are on the Black Effect Network. Our ads are run through them. But we own Earn Your Leisure 100%. We own our IP. We own our YouTube channel. We own our touring. We own our merch.
We own our network.
So, it's a partnership.
Yeah.
We're not beholden to anyone, and no one owns our brand, because no one can own what we started.
Yeah.
Unless they come with a crazy shit.
Then our leisure's been earned.
So that would never happen.
Yeah.
And I encourage all creatives to understand your worth and understand your value. Fortunately for us, we came in already strong.
Came into the
financially
game.
and from a standpoint of having, a large community already. So we had a little bit more leverage in our conversation. Some people may not have that same leverage, but it's important to believe in yourself and do what you feel comfortable with. If you feel comfortable with somebody owning your IP, I can't knock that. That's what you feel comfortable with, but that's not something that we feel comfortable with. So that's not something that we did.
Yeah. And I'll just add just briefly to that. And when we had the conversations with Charlemagne, he was more on the side of, look, I understand all that. I want to help y'all grow, and I want to help you can help us grow. And so that's why partnership is so important. And he's been adamant about that. And any resources that he could provide to us, and he's provided to us, anybody he could network us with, it was like, all right, you have an open book to me, I have an open book to you. And that's what partnership's about. We're trying to grow the Black Effect Network, and we're trying to grow Earn Your Leisure. So everybody's on the same page when it comes to that.
And you guys are definitely growing the Earn Your Leisure brand and franchise. Let's talk about the network you guys just launched. I keep seeing my homeboy Ash Cash all over with the vault. Okay, so break that down. You're under a podcast network, but you have your own network and you're working with talent. How does that work?
Yeah. So we started our podcast network, and we realized when we did a show called Market Mondays, and we started that a year ago, actually, and that was the first show that we produced that came under we had Earn Your Leisure, and Earn Your Leisure was going well, and I put it out there want to start to help other people produce podcasts and be involved in other people's shows. So that was one that we did, and it was a stock show. And as Troy said, we did it with Ian Dunlap, who was a guest on our podcast. And the show was extremely successful, is extremely successful.
Right.
It's become a cultural phenomenon within itself. So being that we have a set template of, okay, we know how to grow our show, Earn Your Leisure. We know how to grow another show, Market Mondays. Now let's expand this and actually, why not? So, we went into the route of, podcast network, no different from if a rapper has a record label, Jay-Z starts Rockefeller Records.
Exactly.
We started EYO Network. So under that umbrella, now we have Market Mondays, of course, as you said, Ash Cash, out to him, Inside the Vault, Dave Shan's Social Proof podcast. And we have about 3 more shows that will be coming very shortly. So we're developing a nice roster with that and everything that we learn from our experiences, even working with iHeart,
exactly,
being in the building there and learning, the inner workings of how they're actually running their operation. We can bring it and use that to run our operation as well. So everything that we do is learning experience.
Yeah, that comes with putting egos to the side, right? We could have said, no, we don't need iHeart, but iHeart is an established brand, right? They had the #1 podcast network, right? So everything that we learn there, now we can apply to Earn Your Leisure Network, and so forth. And now when creatives want to go to a place where they, because you said the podcast game is growing so rapidly, they know that Earn Your Leisure Network is a place that they can go that's trusted and it's proven. And so now we get people coming in all the time. Hey, I want to start this podcast. And if we can offer help in that process and it makes sense, then absolutely, let's grow this thing out. Like you said, it's the same thing that we learned in music when we saw Def Jam get Rough Riders and we saw them get Rockefeller and we saw them have Murder Inc. at the same time. And so it was like, all right, well, let's apply what we learned in music. Let's apply what we got from iHeart, and let's do it Earn Your Leisure Network.
Troy, speaking of applying the lessons that you guys have been learning along the way, you've been speaking to so many entrepreneurs and business leaders. What lessons have you been applying when it comes to personal finance and growing your generational wealth? What lessons have you taken from those interviews and have applied yourself? And what fruits have you been bearing because of that?
So the first thing, when we sat down with Ian, and he I remember him telling us, listen, we used to tell you that you needed 6 to 8 months savings to be secure. And I remember he was like, nah, my new theory is we need 60 months. And it took me off guard. I said, 60 months. I'm like, that's almost 5 years of savings. And he said, it won't be about you, right? You got to think about it. When you accumulate a certain level of wealth, it won't be about you anymore. It will be about your family and your generations that'll live on without you. And so that became my mindset now. It was like, okay, at first, if I get 6 to 8 months, then my household would be okay. But will my family be okay? Will my cousins, right? Will my nieces and nephews be okay? And so I started thinking more in terms of like your extended family being sufficient. That's in terms of finance. And then one of the things I learned that I applied was, again, our brother Derek Falcon told me, he said, people major in minor things. And so when he said it, I'm like, ooh, that's a bar right there. People major in minor things. And so to me, it was like, you know what? Don't sweat the small things, man. Focus on the things that matter. Keep your eyes on the prize, have tunnel vision, and don't deviate from the plan. And so once I had that mindset, everything changed. It was like nothing could stop me because I knew what our mission is here to do. And so that became it. Anything that wasn't earn your leisure did not matter, right? Like any naysayer or any comment didn't matter, because I know the purpose of what we're here to do and the mission that we're on. And it's bigger than anything that somebody could tell me in a comment. You know what I mean?
Oh, that's deep. That's powerful. What about you, Rashad? What business lessons have you learned from an interview that you are now applying personally?
Yeah, I mean, even bigger than just the interviews, just the relationships that we that we
Mm-hmm.
have fostered. So like Wall Street Trapper, whether it's Ian, whether it's MG the mortgage guy, these are people that I use for resources. So like the stock market, have a substantial amount of money in the stock market, and I utilize everybody that we have brought on a platform that actually has anything to do with stocks. I pick their brain, I ask them different questions, and I learn from them as much as I possibly can offline. And just like, as far as what I've picked up from the podcast that I've actually implemented, Wall Street Trapper, when he was speaking about, opening a custodial account for your children, that's something I didn't have for my son that was set up. I already knew about it, but just him talking about it, him talking about how much money he had for his daughter really encouraged me to really go forward and put money into my son's account. So that was something that definitely, we did as a result of that. Of course, we have a truck, an 18 wheeler.
Mm-hmm.
And that was, we have a relationship, Alex Good Energy, shout out to him. And he came on the podcast, and he was the first person that I ever actually spoke about, that I heard speak about, owning a truck. And when he broke it down, and then once again developing that relationship, it opened our minds. And about a year later, we ended up buying a truck. So those are just a few things that I picked up personally that
Mm-hmm.
we've implemented from the podcast. But it's been a bunch of different
Yeah.
stuff. Just like Troy said, different mindset hacks, investment tips, different ways to actually run a business, like learning about like Facebook ads. That's something that we learned. The first person I really heard that was really doing that was Budgetnista, and that was last year, around this time last year. And she was telling us about how much money she was making and how running Facebook ads and things of that nature. So that's something that we picked up from her. So man, we can go
We
on
got a
and on
lot.
and
Yeah,
on,
yeah. We're
but
about to
it's
do
it's so
something right
many.
now. We're going back to our old high school, and we learned the vending machine business. And so that's something that we're trying to imply in our community, not only to help with the school as far as if they have budgetary issues, but it's also going to employ kids to have their own, right? And so like anything that we learn and we can put back into our community to help uplift it, we're going to do that, because we'd be foolish if we didn't take the information and actually apply it in the real world. And so people are watching us do it, and so they're feeling like I could do it too, and that's the real goal.
So in 2019, the medium white household held about $188,200 in wealth, which is 7.8 times that of a typical Black household, which is about $24,100. And again, that's the median. What will it take to close the racial wealth gap? Because again, you guys are giving all the tools, all the finances, every tip, strategy for the culture, for those of us people of color to really level up when it comes financially. But what will it take to actually get to that level where we no longer even have a racial wealth gap?
So I guess that's a multifaceted question, but one of the things is business infrastructure. That's one of the first things we have to establish businesses, because that's really the lifeline to wealth. Like, if you look at the wealthiest people in the world, they're all entrepreneurs, every one of them. And we was just talking about yesterday actually,
Mm-hmm.
on the stock market, there's over 4,000 stocks on the stock market, and roughly around 12 of
12.
them are Black owned companies. So that's not even a fraction of a percent. So it's just goes to show you that business, we are still far behind in business. So one of the things that we have to do is establish Black businesses, support Black businesses, grow Black businesses at a large scale. We have to get out of the mindset of just thinking mom and pop and small community-based businesses. That's good,
Mm-hmm.
but we also have to start thinking about global brands on an extremely large scale, like Nike and Sony and Apple. Like, why can't we have a Black corporation that same scale?
Yeah.
So that's definitely will help improve the process. Education is something that, we do that's everybody can benefit from, whether you're a business owner or not. Just being financially educated, financially literate,
Mm-hmm.
learning about investing, learning about credit, learning about debt, learning about real estate. These are things that can improve your own personal financial balance sheet and will help you personally. And then also, I think politically as well. Politically, we cannot you know brush over that part. But the economics, I think, is actually more important than the political point, because once you have a firm economic base,
Mm-hmm.
then that gives you a lot more leverage in the political realm. So now you can actually, force politicians to really do whatever you want, because you have them in a realm where they need you and you don't need them, because you can finance their campaign. Like we were talking yesterday, there's not, like, I don't know if there's one or two, but there should be more black super PACs, like a legitimate black super PAC, like, where it's like, okay, pushing the black agenda, and we're not asking for anything, we're demanding it.
Exactly.
And if the Republicans don't want to do it, the Democrats don't. If the Democrats don't want to do it, the Republicans. We can't just be, blinded and just focus on one particular person just based off of an emotion. So yeah, that's my rant, but that's a few things, I think.
It's
Yeah.
multifaceted.
Yeah. I would just stress to that again, education, and coming from a background in education, I was in education for 16 years in the school districts, but it goes beyond the four walls of a school building, and so that goes beyond walking in the streets, but in the home, and it starts there really. So like getting your kids familiar with an understanding of what money is, but also as parents understanding what money is. I think we don't really have a firm understanding of money, and so we don't really value our relationship with it. So if we knew our history with money, then we would treat it better and we would understand it better and we would use it as a tool. But I also think mindset is a big part of that too, right? Like if we had a different type of mindset when it came to buying and consuming, it would change, right? So we always stress like, listen, we need to be less in the consumer side and more in the investing side, right? When we invest, we get a return on that. When we consume, it's transactional, right? I like it for a minute. I like these shoes for a minute. I like this game for a minute. When I don't like it anymore, I'm done with it. But when we invest, that's something that can grow for ages, and that's something that can be passed down. And so, if we can shift the mindset through education, that would be great. So I think that helps it. But yeah, it's a multi-layered issue that we're hopefully coming up with some solutions through the work that we're doing.
Okay, absolutely. So, what's next for Earn Your Leisure? You guys have the podcast network. You've partnered with iHeart's podcast network. You guys have merch. You guys have an expanding brand. You're making money moves. What's next on the horizon for the franchise?
Yeah, I think expanding into every single area. So we definitely, the university is something that has grown at a tremendous speed. So our online university, which is like our private school education that we give, where we have like weekly classes, and I do a financial planning call, and we have a book club, movie club, and we have a whole course on how to buy a home, and so many different things inside of that. So we want to grow the online education space and be the biggest online university, like rivaling a Phoenix University. So I think we have over like 7,000, almost 9,000 members
Mm-hmm.
in EYL University. So we want to get that up to like a 50,000 or 100,000 members on EYL University. Of course, the podcast network, we're growing that. We want to continue to grow that. We have trucks now, so we want to, possibly grow that into like a fleet of trucks. Real estate, something that we, extremely bullish on. Want to have, that's our goal, is to have 100 doors soon, as far as real estate is concerned. And just even, bigger than that, just speaking of what,
Yeah.
gentleman yesterday, shout out to Francis, he was like, y'all should have a private equity firm. It's from so many businesses that you come into contact with, you should, mentor these businesses and, offer them deals, take some equity. And now you have a private equity firm where you actually have a portfolio of businesses, and then something like that, you can take that, like, public on the stock market. We were talking about that yesterday,
Yeah.
as far as like taking a company public on the stock market. Consulting, something that everybody has, a lot of people have asked me to do for a while, as far as social media consulting and things of that nature.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe we can start a consulting branch of Earn Your Leisure as well. Education space is where we actually originally started from. So outside of EY University, growing the education as far as, getting in curriculum in schools, middle schools, high schools, even colleges. That's something I always wanted to do as well. Teach a college class. So I feel like, could be like an adjunct professor at one of these colleges and create a curriculum there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot. It's a lot.
Expanding the media brand as well. So we're so multi-talented. I feel like there's nothing that we can't do. I think that's just us, right? We're just ambitious enough to believe that we can do anything. And so you might see us in some films. You might see us in some short TV, slots. So I mean, there's it's really limitless. But yeah, the thing he said about education is so powerful because it is where we started. And so like that's one of my passions is to get back to that and sprinkling these seeds throughout communities that need us, that are underserved. And that was one of the things that we focused on. We knew that this type of education was not being put in schools. And so it became very intentional to me, like we got to create something to help kids. And if I left a place, I knew that I wouldn't be replaced. You know what I mean? Like I knew there wasn't going to be another me that was coming through. To be a Black male in education is very rare. It's like less than 1%. And so once I leave a space, how do I replace it? And so I can replace it by creating programs that can help the community out long term. And so we're extremely passionate about that. And it's definitely something that we're going to be doing in the future.
What is the future of podcasting? You guys got in at an opportune time. Finance and business is a huge trending topic right now, especially amongst the culture, and podcasting is huge. But what is the future? Do you guys think that it's going to continue to soar up, or will it, something else happen or evolve? What do you guys think about that?
I think the future for podcasting is bright. I think we're just at the beginning stages of podcasting. I think it's only going to get bigger. It's going to become more competitive because, more corporations are going to get involved, and just is more podcast period in the space. So that's important for people to understand. But no, I think podcast is here for a long time. I think it's only going to get bigger and bigger, and more people are going to be tuned in to podcasts. So, I'm enthusiastic about the space.
We're bullish on it. We're bullish on it. Yeah, I mean, even from a corporate standpoint, people are looking at it like this is a means to get across a message, because there's a growing audience of millennials that this is how they consume news. A lot of people don't watch TV. They don't listen to the radio. This is their radio. And so people listen to us like they would listen to, I guess, Oprah at one point. Not that we're Oprah, but that's where they're getting the information from. And so we understand that very, very clearly. And that's why we do the research that we do to make sure that what we're putting out is valuable content and that it's flushed through and it's legit. And so we're very clear that, and we're bullish on the space going forward.
You guys are very clear and you're doing a great job. Let us know one more time how we could tap in and get some of the resources, knowledge, and gems that you guys are dropping on Earn Your Leisure.
Yeah, for sure. Once again, thank you for having us. Greatly appreciate it.
It's always good to come back home.
Long overdue. Overdue. Yeah. I was feeling like you didn't like us, but it's all
no,
good.
You weren't.
I'm telling we had this conversation. Like, I don't think Selena rocking with us, man. I see what she's doing over there. She ain't called us yet. Maybe when we get to 1 million followers, she'll call.
Nah, but you guys know everything is about timing.
That's a fact. That's why we never took it. We ain't take it personal. We just said when the time is right, she'll call.
I appreciate it. But now you can follow us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, TikTok, or every social media. We are on Earn Your Leisure across all social media platforms. Earn Your Leisure, YouTube. You can listen to our podcast on Earn Your Leisure on Apple, Spotify, and of course iHeart. Once again, shout out to the Black Effect Podcast Network. And EYL University, which is our educational arm, that is information on that is EYLuniversity.com. So earnyourleisure.com is the mothership with all of the information on everything, our merch, everything that we have going on. So yeah, you can tap in with us there for sure.
Yeah, you can find our Black Enterprise article there too.
Thank you so much for your time.
I think we need a follow-up. We need a follow-up article.
Yeah.
It's coming. It's coming. Thank you guys.
Van Gogh
appreciate it.
What's the backdrop right there? Is that like a Van Gogh painting?
Yes.
I know you fan.
We might have to get
the backdrop.
We might have to get the cover though. I ain't gonna hold you. I think
cover story.
#1 podcast. That's worthy. That's worthy.
It's worthy.
You know what? I love the ambition. I love that. That right, the goals right there. Like, nah, we need a cover story. I heard you. Okay.
From New York to New York. It means something.
It does. It does mean something. Well, we're working on it, and we will continue to support you guys because you guys are super, super dope. So I'm excited to see everything in the future. What you guys did in the last 2 years, you know, it just leaves us like, okay, what's going to happen in the next 10 years?
No, I appreciate it.
More
Thank
to
you
come.
again. And once again, kudos to you because we definitely see you interviewing every single person that we know. So it's crazy.
It's a small circle, small world, right?
Yeah, for sure. You're working hard.
I've seen it too.
What'd
you say?
I said you're working hard. So kudos to you.
No, you guys are working hard too. I'm trying to keep up with you guys.